I guess there's going to be another one of these weird videos again that don't really quite make much sense, but I thought I'd just go ahead with the idea anyway and make this video. Again, this is like my channel, so if any of you are personally offended or it's too triggering, then please click away, because I don't want to be like the target of I don't know, just I guess you could say unnecessary criticism. Because right now I feel in my life I've already got more than enough on my plate. It's not even that much necessarily, it's just like right now I don't know what to really do. And I was thinking of like potentially talking about my potential spiritual journey, and I guess you could say the meaning of life, but that's quite an existential topic, and it might go nowhere, and it's quite blabber. I'll just go on with blabbering, potentially. Yeah, to all you random psychics out there, if you're wondering why I smell, then please stop smelling, because, well, I haven't had time to deal with everything right now, and I'm quite sweaty and gross right now, so I find it rather strange that some people claim to be able to read people's energy, including mine, or see if there's any attachments, or even to the point of smelling. Like, that's kind of disturbing, that one, I guess. But anyway, aside that random thing, I thought, I don't know where to really start off with this, because I don't really want it to be the main topic. Like, I don't know. I've always wondered if I'm, because this is going to turn into like sort of like pity rant if I go on, and I don't want to be that person who goes on having a pity party, but it is my channel and I just don't know what else to say, who else to talk to, what else to do, aside journaling and trying to deal with my emotions, because that's one thing. People, if you're raised, I suppose, in a decent-ish family, I guess you're taught these unspoken social rules. I guess you're taught how to sort of self-soothe and manage your emotions. But I don't think I was taught at all to manage my emotions, because I was seen as an extension of my parents, who I suspect were both narcissists, and the thing is, when you don't learn how to self-soothe because nobody was there to take care of you emotionally or physically or otherwise, you try to find other ways to take care of yourself. And I remember watching a video on maternal child neglect, which is not a very pleasant topic, and I'm one to depress people, that's for sure. I wish I could be positive, but I guess I'll try and get to that point later, why I feel like I ought to be more positive. And the thing is, in this video, it showed an old black and white documentary of toddlers, or babies basically, who would rock themselves in an orphanage under psychiatric help, I guess, and without actual treatment, they just They did not display any eye contact. They would rock themselves. They would do repetitive motions and movements. And I can't help but think, like, all these sound like, basically, all these traits sound like autism, or Aspergers, but that's not necessarily the most shocking or disturbing. It's just a realization that neglect can actually be quite easily disguised in a first world country, to the point that if your parents keep up appearances in terms of societal things, it's quite easy to conceal. And it's only recently that I don't know if it's in the medical department or the psychological department, but they've come up with a test called ACE scores, or ACE testing, which is a form of testing for adverse childhood experiences, I think, something like that. And I remember taking a test a while ago because I was just interested in this new study, basically, or new ways to see how childhood experiences can essentially impact your adult life in invisible ways, to the point, I mean, it can be really damaging, but you won't know the cause or why, and you'll just go through life wondering what on earth, what's wrong with you. There's nothing tangible really until, I guess you could say, you learn about narcissism, emotional neglect, and basically adverse childhood experiences and ACE tests. And yeah, I took this test and it's out of 10, and I recommend you also take this test even if you think you had a good family. It's just good to know these things. It's like, because it can impact your health. A slightly to moderately high score can actually reduce your lifespan by, not meaning to scare people, by 10 to 20, even 30 decades, because of the associated health risks of having even a moderately high ACE score. And I did the test, and I think I did twice. I might have even done it several times to verify. And unless I did something wrong, I got an 8, maybe even 9 out of 10 ACE score. And I was kind of horrified, actually, because I don't know how people basically cope once they get the results of such a test, and it's still not really being implemented by doctors, or when you have your routine checkup, basically. Maybe it's relatively new and it's something that's only being mentioned in America, potentially. I'm not entirely sure. So I had a rather high score, and I don't know if it meant I had high chances of PTSD or CPTSD, but it was in the list, basically, and according to my score, I should basically be either an alcoholic, a drug addict, or dead, or even just, yeah, something, at least one of those, and maybe like on medication potentially as well. And one thing that makes it really hard, aside the ACE scores, is I can't figure out, the older I get, the more I research on personality disorders such as Aspergers, the high functioning equivalent, I guess you could say, of autism, the more I see a correlation between Asperger's and basically a form of neglect. And it's a touchy subject because not every parent will have neglected their child. It might not even have been intentional. I actually think that in some cases, let's say the parent did not neglect the child, or they did not do something that changed them in their formative years. I think it's possible that a certain incident or several incidents of abuse that the parent does not know about might have triggered the child. Then there's the biological component, like there's some theories and studies that autism can be induced by vaccinations. There were these papers being run, and even if it's not the direct cause, I think like the intolerances to the proteins that are used to transfer the virus or the proteins, or whatever we call them, in the vaccinations are potentially allergenic. At least they were in the 90s and the 80s, and the proteins used to transport the viruses in the vaccinations, they were usually made out of GMO or like extremely inflammatory ingredients or foreign ingredients. I'm combining a virus. I'm just going on to freaking biochemistry here, I guess you could say. And when you put a virus inside a protein, and the protein is already likely to cause inflammation. I'm no expert, but from what I've read, like it just mutates like the overall like virus or the protein to have an effect on the body within an immune system that the child may suddenly become allergic to soy, corn, dairy, eggs, peanuts, etc. Those kind of things. And so that the virus encased within a protein which is used to transfer the virus, if you're already likely to be intolerant to the protein, or the virus triggered the intolerance to the protein, imagine the disaster that does on your immune system. And people think allergies just happen in one area of the body, but at the end of the day, inflammation can occur in your brain if it goes past the blood-brain barrier, or I guess you could call it the gut barrier, because some people, they have missing bacteria in their guts when they're born, especially on a modern diet, and the foreign viruses just float around, or just the foreign foods you eat float around in your bloodstream, and if you're really unlucky, they float into your brain, and then they get wedged in your brain, and then your brain sees as inflammation, and then people wonder why people suffer from things like autism or epilepsy. So yeah, that's my side tangent on the causes of Asperger's, autism, and other disorders, even maybe schizophrenia, epilepsy, all these personality or brain functioning disorders that are perceived as abnormal in this society. I think it's got several components: biological, caused by food, creates brain inflammation. I think the other one is the environment, the environment that parent raises the child, or whether it's also what the parent does or doesn't do, if that makes sense. And there's studies that show a lack of mother-child bonding sort of create basically this inability to scan for faces. That's why the autistic child, there's theories, if they're incapable, or the mother didn't as well, because it could be the child, it could be the parent, it could be multiple things. If they cannot learn to mirror the parent's eye contact and body language, and the mother mirrors, if she's unable to mirror the child's eye contact and body language, it creates no ability to sort of, I guess you could say, create an ego in the earliest stages, or the concept of a self, like when you look into a mirror, hence the term mirror neurons. I know I'm oversimplifying it, but that's the only way I know how to explain it as. And without that self, you go through life, especially if you're more low functioning, or even if you are high functioning, like you kind of identify with anything but humans. So you identify with objects and things, or food, or obsessions, like intellectual obsessions. There's nothing wrong with that, but it seems to give the child, the adult person suffering from autism or Aspergers, or even other personality disorders such as narcissism, they tend to become things like, not always, but hoarders or OCD. You have these comorbid personality disorders, and they sort of just create this giant mess, basically, and you don't know who you are because you never had a self, because you could never mirror yourself and see yourself in the parent, and the parent can see the child in them. I don't know if that makes sense, but without this mirroring in early infancy, it creates this problem where the child could develop anything from narcissism to sociopathy to autism to other strange, inexplicable, maybe more subtle behaviors of just having no willpower, no motivation to do anything, just apathy, learned hopelessness, all kinds of things. And this is where, like, I guess my situation kind of comes into play with that, because I always wondered, why is it I went through a long phase in my life where I could not read emotions correctly. Like, I'd mistake anger as smirking or maliciousness. Like, I'd assume like somebody angry at me is smirking at me, because I learned from an early age that somebody who's my parents, when they were angry at me, they were actually laughing and they were angry at me. Which in some individuals, I think if they're not self-aware or conscious of this, they end up going through life laughing in maybe inappropriate situations, for instance. And I used to do this as a child, but I used to do this more out of nervousness, I think. But I always sensed there was something deeply wrong with a parent that would sneer or smile whilst angry. Now, it doesn't mean they did that all the time. It's just from a very early age, a child creates memories and bonds, and your entire childhood and imagination, in a sense, is based off emotions. And without those emotions, you don't have those memories. But sometimes you have the, I guess you could say, not quite correct emotion applied to said memory, or maybe it is the correct emotion to the said applied memory, because those are perceived threats. So, yeah, sometimes this sort of, they say children with, I don't know about children specifically, but people on the autism spectrum, they have enlarged amygdalas. Basically, the part of the brain, or limbic brain, that controls fight or flight, or fawn, a few others that I'd rather not mention. Like biological processes, depending on the individual, yeah, like, and I also read somewhere that narcissists essentially run on they essentially run on their reptilian brain, which is also I think if I'm right, the amygdala. Which puts them in a constant state of fight or flight. Psychopaths and sociopaths also seem to be under constant, at least low-grade stress, hence why maybe their pupils, I've noticed, seem enlarged. Not always, like their pupils seem way too big, as if they're basically high, but I think it's like a sort of adrenal disorder caused by being in constant fight or flight, or being in constant survival. Autism is interesting, or Aspergers, because it's a form of compartmentalization. And my personal theory is that I drew a picture, but I don't know if I have it right now. I mean, I could always look for it. Well, I cannot find it, but basically, the whole idea of compartmentalization is kind of like a sort of military mindset where you play a role and you're able to sort of like shut it out when you're not doing it, kind of like, in a sense, yeah, military training, and you're just able to snap into it depending on the key or trigger words, and you're able to snap out of it, which is very similar to sort of the whole process behind the whole idea of concepts such as MK Ultra. And yeah, where the brain is sort of like, it's just within a box under that set personality. And it also seems people who suffer from trauma as well, like they're more likely to suffer from DID, which has, I'm not sure if the definition has changed, which seems to encompass, if I'm right, multiple personalities, but not always. Sometimes it's a case of you just simply dissociate, and in that case, makes me wonder if somebody like myself has experienced such things, because I don't think I would fit the most obvious box or case of creating multiple personalities. In fact, when I was a child, I wished I had an imaginary friend, and I wished so badly to have multiple personalities just to keep myself entertained, but unfortunately, all I had was this white noise, silence, and then people may wonder why I anthropomorphize things, why I treat things almost on the same level as people, because I was lonely, essentially, because I didn't have friends, and I've been to over a dozen schools, because I never stayed in a school more than a year or two, and I was always a new kid, and by the time I got comfortable, that's when I'd have to move on, and then I'd have to move on again. And every single time, I read somewhere that moving frequently is very bad for like your stability, and in some terms your root chakra, and it would explain a lot basically of my circumstances, because I don't think I ever had a set home. Like, home to me, the concept of that sounds quite stifling, because I've always felt like I was on the run. I used to have dreams where I'd always be moving as well, and sometimes I still occasionally have dreams where I'm walking into strangers' houses, or hundreds of people's houses. It's kind of weird, or I'm like, I guess because I'm invading people's houses, and it's very strange. I guess I have to look up that dream dictionary definition, because I have no idea. I mean, if you have any idea of dream dictionary definitions, then please inform me. But preferably, I was going to say not publicly, but since the YouTube system has changed, I don't know. Alternatively, you could add me on Facebook under the name Alpaca Le Petit, which is kind of like, yeah, a bit of a meme name, I guess you could say. But the point is, yeah, that's my name on Facebook. It isn't my real name, of course. Like, it's not who I am, because I'll be kind of strange. And otherwise, because I don't think I'm available as Accidental Warrior through Facebook, although I'm not sure. So yes, if you want to message me or discuss certain topics with me, then you should be able to find me under that on social media, or potentially Twitter, things like that. So yeah. Anyway, I guess one of the hardest things about growing up with a very warped and twisted view of the world is everything seems like a threat, and it's hard to differentiate between what is genuine, what is good for you, and what is actually dangerous for you, because what is dangerous might seem appealing and paradoxically safe, and what is good for you might be painful and appears unsafe to you. It's very strange, but And it's hard to explain because I've had these conversations with a few people and it's resulted in like people just basically unfriending me or not talking to me ever again kind of thing, because I randomly in passing said I think I might be high functioning a few times. Now I don't really go around saying that, it was just an experiment to see, do it a few times, and it just ended badly. And the most frustrating part is, every time I try to be genuine and I try to connect with people, people somehow misinterpret that as fake, phony, insincere, manipulative, I guess. And I think it's because I haven't learnt how to act in social situations. I don't know what's appropriate and what isn't appropriate, because I have the knowledge in terms of social interaction of maybe a 6-year-old. Like, I don't know the concept of essentially earning trust. I mean, now I guess I do, but the problem is by the time I usually earn someone's trust, I end up usually screwing it all up and biting the hand that feeds. So to anybody that's watching this, if you are my friend or you know me, then I'm just not gonna put it. Like, I'm sorry. Like, seriously, I don't mean to be like phony or insincere, and like, it's annoying when your yes comes off as a no and your no comes off as a yes, but it's not as simple as that. And on a more personal note, because I don't know really what the point of saying that all this stuff is like, I find myself yet again, I wouldn't say yet again, but being blocked, which is, I understand, like, it's a form of setting boundaries, but I also read somewhere that's it's a new form of, like, deleting you from existence, basically, and I find that insincere, and I find it unfair, because in the past, before social media and I guess the internet, it was just easier dealing with people just, I guess you could say, avoiding you, but you know, they didn't make it. It becomes crazy when people, I guess you could say, go out their way saying they're going to delete you or block you from existence, when I find it frustrating, because if they trusted you, or I don't know what to say here, because it's kind of a grey area here. Like, they just give it time rather than block you. But I've realised there are a lot of people out there who do go crazy with spamming messages, I guess. Or maybe they do awful things to these people. I'm not sure, maybe not, maybe people just block just because. Like, it's not about people attacking them and all that. Although, I found myself in situations where I probably should have blocked people. But usually I found myself where specifically abusive people who have given me death threats have privately sent me messages and things like that, and then they block me, and then before you know it, everyone believes their story that's of some slanderous story that's God knows what, and it's just like, I don't have time to go around attacking people or individuals. I guess I'm just clumsy, and I think the problem is, like, when I show anger, or because I'm not used to people caring, I have this tendency, again, biting hand that feeds. And it's terrifying because I feel regret afterwards, and I think about it for months and years. I will move on and do my own thing in life, of course. That's what I always do. What else can I do? But I'm annoyed that the few people I cared about, I was like, people always leave me. I don't drop them. People drop me. And I keep thinking, is it, you know, do I stink? Do I harass people with messages daily? Maybe I do, I don't know, like, no. And the problem is, when you ask a so-called friend silly questions, because I know they're silly, but if they don't answer them, like, or give you feedback because, say, they're upset, or you did something to upset them precisely, and they don't answer your question, it makes it even harder for the next time of social interaction with a new person or the same person, because you're just going around not knowing these social rules of what is appropriate and what is inappropriate. It's really, really frustrating because, you know, your friends aren't meant to be your therapists, and I completely understand that, and it's just so annoying, because it's like, I think I've tried for therapy several times now, and it doesn't work, and I have yet to figure out how to get it to work, over technical problems, I guess. But I don't even think therapy would cut it, because most therapy doesn't include teaching you social graces or things you should have learnt that should be fully ingrained within your psyche by the time you're a child, you know, a 6 to 10-year-old. And now I'm too old, and no one's going to teach you those things. I sometimes wonder, should I, you know, just go like, fuck it, I'll just like go move back in and live with my abusive family who compare me to celebrities on TV, or who compare me to some person that I don't even know nor care about, or silly things like that, or sibling, always like so and so does this better than you, and why can't you be like so and so, and I think just by nature of spending the last few weeks, maybe even months, couple of months, feeling sorry for myself over not having a family has actually potentially lowered my frequency to the point where I am now reconsidering interacting with my family, because, as my parents would say, as society would say, is, you know, when you don't have friends, or you know, like friends come and go basically, and who do you have left at the end of the day? It's family. All that you have is your own blood, basically. And yes, I've heard quotes of, just because you're blood doesn't mean you're family, which I completely agree with. It's just, I hate how the closest bonds basically I grew up with are essentially abusive, and I've got to figure this all out with therapy. I have to pay money. Even if it's free, it's probably not going to be specialised enough, but let's say if I want to specialise stuff, I have to pay hundreds if not thousands of pounds, basically to regain a sense of self. I mean, maybe, you know, such things like this shouldn't matter, you know, if you're spending money. It shouldn't matter if it costs money. Or it shouldn't matter if the therapy's bad. It should maybe, you know, I sometimes think maybe you should be just grateful that you get anything. And just like, I think I've spent my entire life being grateful for free stuff because I grew up poor. So, I don't know, like, I have all these contradictions within myself, basically. And it's extremely frustrating. I think just by, it's so ironic, like, I've been basically blocked by the only people I give a damn about on my private social media, because my energy is bad, and I'm not going to mention the other situation with the other person, but it's just like, I basically upset them, and I went overboard. I guess I, again, bit the hand that feeds. I did not show any enthusiasm, or maybe I wasn't grateful enough, or it's really hard to convey certain things through the internet as well. Like, so many things get misinterpreted through the internet, and even if they're correctly interpreted, the internet's still not a good example. Ideally, people should go by feeling, if you can connect emotionally, but then, yeah, maybe even that's limiting too, because it requires energy to connect with somebody emotionally or psychically online. I I don't know, I wish I was a better person. It's weird. Just, if I want a family that I've never had, and I want to reconnect with my family for some semblance or delusion of being normal, to not go homeless, essentially. I have to reconnect with people who are just, like, if I'm here naturally, they're down here, way down here, and I'm here naturally. And I find it ridiculous that I guess you could say, the more empathetic, if I'm saying that right, or spiritually inclined people I know, they're really high up, and I don't know how they manage to maintain that. And I'm like, I feel like I'm just here, and it like kind of fluctuates. But it's just like, when I'm on a downer, I spiral downwards, and it gets so bad. Before you know it, I'm basically stuck on the same level with people who are giving me death threats now, wanting to befriend me on my Facebook. When several years later, so what? They'll just gaslight me again. That's, you know, just get over the past. No, that's abusive, and it's just wrong. And I was not taught to see what's wrong or right, and as a result, I guess I'm gullible and naive. And it's really annoying, because sometimes when I say no, I don't understand, I really mean it. I don't know, I don't understand. I'm not gaslighting you, and it's like sometimes like a mirror of narcissism, but really I'm genuinely like stumped. Like, I don't have time to play games. I really don't. I don't have time to play games. I don't have time to play manipulation games. A lot of the time, my knee-jerk reactions is just from old programming from my family. Like, when I was 8 years old, my middle name was Sarcasm. And I realised that's not normal interaction at all. Like, 8-year-olds should not be sarcastic. Like, insults as default should not be normal. Being bitter about the world, and your parents telling you when you're 8 years old, saying don't ever go into art, you'll just end up like crazy, like Van Gogh, who made money after he died, and he was crazy anyway because he chopped his own ear off. And it's true, you can't really make money in the art industry, unfortunately, because it's probably been commercialized and outsourced to, well, yeah, just capitalistic commercial things, I guess you could say, like advertising. And true talent, unfortunately, is not respected anymore, I think, or being genuine is not respected anymore. And I don't just mean creative endeavours as well, because I was told that other things like, you know, when I was a kid, like, oh, I was young as 8, like, don't dream, like, look at us, you can have master's degrees and still not have money, like, you can just be a poor academic. And it's just like, when you hear those things, I used to remember, well, I can't speak, I remember when I was younger that I was told specifically to not dream. Don't dream, you'll never have a house, don't dream. Like, money does not grow on trees, don't dream. Or like, who do you think you are? We're not the Rothschilds. I think the worst damage neglectful or narcissistic parents can say is things like that, like, who do you think you are? It really cements, and then they give you impossibly high standards as well to reach high, like, oh, you'll become world famous and you'll become like Richard Branson. How? Like, how is, like what, with zero support, zero tutoring? When parents say things like, oh, you just figure it out. Kids can't just figure it out and teach themselves. And even if you manage to teach yourself, your parents are literally knocking you down every step of the way. By the time you hit teenage, you wonder why you go insane. I don't think I was even allowed to, basically. Part of me was thinking I was going to cry. Maybe I already did, to be honest, before this. And I'm going to try and keep some dignity and that it really matters, because it's just like, again, I was raised as well that crying is a form of manipulation and lies, which is insane, because why would I fake crying? It's like a waste of tears. It's not, it's a release, but it's not, I don't understand why people fake crying. Like, it's like actual acting, like, if that's, you know, your job. That's the problem, like, everything is like some sort of center stage to the narcissist, or psychopath, or sociopath. And they, the smarter ones, they will go as far to cry, but then they see, it's weird, because they see the world as everyone who cries or showing emotion as a liar, which is interesting, because it shows they naturally have a lack in their heart space or their heart chakra, and it's just, yeah, it's depressing, because of maybe some deep ingrained trauma, some lack of parental bonding. And it's annoying because it's just like, I'm sure I have that. I'm sure I have that capacity to be a good person and bond with people. But there's just something off. And I think I need extra time. People to be more patient with me. I think I need people to not assume that, again, people only know what they know. They can't know what they don't know. So if I'm upset, and people think I'm upset for the most common situation, like say jealousy, like I don't know, like how, like sometimes I don't think I'm jealous, and sometimes I don't think I realize how much of a doormat I am, and sometimes I don't realize how weird and apathetic I am until too late. I've also noticed I'm able to hide my extreme pain, physical, mental, and otherwise, very well. And it's just like, when I do express my pain, then I scare off people. And I've noticed my timing with being my genuine self. When people, it's weird, right? The people close to me have always said, be yourself, be yourself. I be myself, I put my foot in my mouth, or shoot myself in the foot. And then they will vanish. They will vanish, and then there's nothing I can do about it. And, you know, all I can do is hope for the best. Expect the worst and hope for the best. Why do I say this? Because I'm a bit of a pessimist naturally. Maybe I'm a nihilist too. It's just, but I do hope for the best, and that's all I can do. And it's annoying because when I'm genuine and I try to explain more why I feel like I'm not being genuine, or why I may have come off as confusing to another person, I wouldn't say they just like say I'm a liar, but there's like, I get the impression there's an implication of like, no, you enjoy playing dumb, or things like, what's the other one people have said? No, you enjoy being apathetic and being depressed. It's like, no, I don't. Why would I be depressed? But thank you for informing me that I'm potentially an energy vampire. And I do feel bad. Like, I would like to sort of reverse this, if I am one, like an emotional energy vampire. Because if all you're taught was to live in a sense, a feeling of scarcity, it's kind of hard to start feeling abundance when that actually feels stifling. It's weird how what is nourishing feels stifling. I guess that's how people with eating disorders feel. They basically, they feel they don't deserve food subconsciously. It's I don't think it's a conscious thing. It really isn't. It's some like, somehow the food is associated with trauma, or with like maybe sub-personalities of people telling them they don't deserve it, and because those sub-personalities represent criticism of, say, the people close to them, that goes over and over in their heads, they then think, yeah, I don't deserve food, I'm a piece of shit, I should just go die. In a sense, a lot of people with eating disorders, and yeah, people with eating disorders, people with depression, they are essentially self-absorbed, narcissistic, vain. They're not like vain in an obvious way. And again, if you have suffered from either of these, or currently do, there's no way intended to harm you or make you feel less than. But that's just the analysis done on these kinds of people from what I've observed, and it's really annoying and frustrating, because these people, they cannot see themselves, kind of like the autistic child or adult on a more severe spectrum, they do not see themselves like as better or different to, say, an inanimate object such as like device. They will just think like it's an extension of themselves. Interesting enough, again, I might have mentioned this in a former video, autism is more of an infantile form of narcissism, as opposed to actual narcissists who became emotionally stunted at around age 6 years old. That's usually the age limit. But it's interesting because with autism or Aspergers, it's like, again, they don't really, if they have an ego, they build an extra layer, and that has sort of turned into like personality quirk, or even narcissism as a coping mechanism. They like the false ego the narcissist creates. But other than that, like, the one thing I do appreciate about people on the autism spectrum, Asperger's autism, for the most part, they seem, it's hard to explain, not all of them are like this, they seem lighter, they seem more genuine, and they don't seem weird to me. Maybe it's because I have it. Like, they seem spiritually enlightened. I don't say like they are spiritually enlightened, but they have this glint in their eyes. I don't know, like, no, I don't know, because I haven't met any that aren't like that. They have a sort of like knowing gaze as well, and like they know something you don't, but at the same time they'll quite happily answer your questions on everything. The problem is they don't seem to have a filter, and women are usually able to go under the radar and do something called acting in life. Some men do this as well. Basically, the higher functioning you are, or maybe it's an IQ thing, I don't know, maybe it's an emotional processing thing. I think a lot of people escape the stereotypical box of that, and then they become self-aware, and then they can start to realize, this is not normal, I act different to this person, my body language is quite repetitive, I do these weird things, maybe I'll confine my weird obsessive behaviours to a more private space to let off steam, because stims, it's just basically a form of letting off excess energy or steam, essentially, in the head. Because the functioning, I guess, is different. It's like, basically, people on the spectrum are very sensitive. Some of these people, paradoxically, they don't want hugs, but they need hugs, or they, things like that. So they might be seen as clingy or obsessive. And I do have special interests, but the problem with females, women, basically, on the spectrum, they tend to become obsessed with people. Like, they collect people, but unlike narcissistic supply of, say, narcissists, like, they're more than happy that this person has free will and their own time. In fact, they're grateful that these people do their own thing. They just, but in their minds, they kind of collect them, I guess you could say, like Pokemon. And maybe the problem with like women on the spectrum is they might come off as too strong, or just too crazy, or clumsy, or phony even. And there's some theories that there's a lot of like women on the spectrum in the acting industry, and that would not surprise me. I wish I could remember some names, but I think there was a woman, I don't know if it's a main character from Kill Bill, who's potentially seen as on the spectrum. Again, they're just all rumours, it's not like guaranteed, and I kind of do wish I had managed to get into acting, because I think I would have been really good at that, because I've had to learn from a very young age, being myself is dangerous, it's easy to act. And it's not that I have a problem being myself, but the concept of what is being yourself is very different to somebody that has not been taught the social rules, that has not been programmed to see what is acceptable and what isn't as acceptable. You know, the way I see the world might be very different from the way you see the world, and etc. So every time somebody has said, like, just be yourself, I think that's the worst possible advice to people that are either socially inept, that have been isolated for years at a time, that have been homeschooled, that have been in psychiatric units, that have I don't know, been hallucinating maybe in a childhood, daydreaming whilst, other kids were having normal interactions, but because they're the weird kids, maybe they missed out on certain things, and they needed, therefore, even more chances of socialization, not less, to sort of outgrow, I don't want to say quirks, but because I don't see anything wrong with differences, but we're not really different. I mean, we're not really the same. At the end of the day, like, people seem to refuse to acknowledge the concept of neurodiversity, yet currently the trend is to push this weird transgender and gender, different genders type theories, into this culture. And now, whilst I don't have much of a problem with that, because why would I? I feel like it's like a plaster on something deeper. Like I said, I'm not against this, because I can imagine people could easily jump down my throat and start attacking me. I think there's more to it. I think it's a cover for differences in brain processing as opposed to sexual expression, because or gender expression, and whatever you call it. And right now, all this I don't know, I feel like a lot of what's going on right now is also masking the real problems of racism that may remain, potentially. Or all this stuff is basically a Marxist spread and circus. It's just oh, look at this, look at that, look at this. It's just, look at these strange things going on and how wonderful it is. Yeah, it is wonderful. But I feel like when it comes to diversity, people miss the deeper causes of diversity. People miss the... Like I said, it's a really touchy subject, this, but... And I may never get to the bottom of this. It just feels like... I don't know, it's a mask to cover for something else, basically. And I don't mean that topic, I mean another topic. I guess you could say compartmentalization again. That's how the military works. It's also how traumatized brains work. So, I don't think I got closer to what I was really going to talk about on a personal level, but I guess with my situation, all I can do is rinse and repeat, start over. If I end up losing the few people that matter in my life, then start over again. And I just hope that I still have a chance, basically, to meet with other people and interact with them. Actors, most people I interact with, most of it's hit or miss. The more I socialize, the more exhausted I am, and I find a really good interaction with people, and the people I manage to make connections with is this much. It's like a needle in a haystack. It's really, it'd be nice to connect with more people, but right now I feel quite limited. I don't know if it's a biological, emotional, traumatic form of processing. I don't know what the point of this video is, really. I guess you could say this could have easily been summarized as I'm upset, I feel quite isolated, and I'm talking to a screen, and I don't have any family to go back to. But I do, but the contrast is they're in another dimension. I just do not relate to them. Most people, if they had to deal with such people, I think they would bar themselves with these people. That's how bad it is. People I've known, boyfriends, friends, they found themselves with throbbing headaches and migraines from leaving my family, visiting my family, even if it's just for a short while. And I've noticed since I moved out a long time ago, every time I try to visit, I'd always feel ill for several days afterwards, having dealt with, even if they said nothing. And here's nothing as well, on top of it is the rudeness. they just wouldn't answer the door sometimes, and my parents would stop my siblings from being rude. They just continue watching TV, and they'd look at me, and then they just, like, yeah, continue onwards. So it's only after knocking on the door for ages, one of my younger sisters would let me in, and then I'd just sit there at the table and would feel like I was greeted with nothing, essentially. And I always felt like I was kind of unwelcome, and that I disturbed my mother's time alone on the computer. It's like nothing had changed, essentially. And the lack of eye contact, except like passive aggressive comments of, oh, you changed your hair, or oh, you look anorexic, or oh, you're ugly. Like, yet I was raised, like the quote from Bambi, like, if you have nothing nice to say, then don't say anything at all. And I was raised Christian, so I learned with the whole, like, concept of turn the other cheek, yet they can have two ways and two measures, where I'm always following all the rules and no one else in my family is expected to. I'm gonna sound probably like a sociopath here, but it's just like, I would not wish my family to die, like, that would be horrible, but, like, because I'd go through the grieving process and all that, but I actually think I'd feel relief if somebody died. Like, that's a horrible thing to say, but I don't know, and maybe I wouldn't feel any different. Considering I was put out homeless on the streets, and I was told that if I ever wanted a witness to get married, I should ask the nearest homeless person on the street. And I was 19 at the time, or maybe 20, and I'd done nothing wrong really. I was just visiting, paying a visit. Yeah, another horrible comments. So if any of you people say you should love your parents no matter what, and let's say you're Christian, and you're watching this, or religious, you got to keep in mind these religious texts do mention something called the Jezebel spirit, and they can possess even those closest to you. Like I said, I'm not an expert, but there are exceptions, and it's just like, I'm the kind of person that continues to be nice, I guess, to the people I was trauma bonded with, and that is not a good thing, because I need to sort of grow out of that. I'm getting too old for this kind of crap. I'm wondering again, should I isolate myself? But then the very so-called friends that need time off, or I don't know, they're the very same people telling me to not isolate myself, but then they isolate me, or I feel stranded, basically. I understand, like, time is needed to repair damage, but I don't know, like, should I therefore not be genuine? Should I wear this mask and become the narcissist? I don't know if I'd feel that good faking it forever, because not who I am. And then people wonder why I'm depressed. I don't know, like, I don't know if this even makes sense, because I'm now just rambling. I also cut my hair, but I don't really feel like talking about it anyway. I'm trying to refrain from cutting my hair more. Just, I guess you could say, a change from high maintenance hair. I changed my appearances, but I don't like the idea of changing my identity.